Student Dream TV, where we bring you money, investing, and startup tips so you can secure the bag before and after graduation. And today we're continuing our series called Keynotes, where I'm interviewing some of the best entrepreneurs, leaders, investors on how you can make money during and after this COVID-19 crisis. Today, I'm super excited to be talking with a friend, a Student Dream alumni, just a boss lady, Denisha Kuhlor, who has started her own company while she was in college. She then went on to finish a nursing degree, of all things, but then actually went on to work full-time at early stage tech at Silicon Valley Bank, and she's now doing early stage tech at Grasshopper Bank. So she has a lot of just knowledge and experience and insights to share with you all as you're navigating this new normal. So please welcome Denisha.
Thank you so much.
Yay! Well, thank you so much, Denisha. I know that I kind of just went into giving your introduction, but I'd love for you to just quickly tell us, you know, who you are, where you're from, what you do.
Yeah. So I am first generation Ghanaian, born and raised in Wallingford.
Nigeria laughs better though.
I'll let you have that one. And came to school in New York, originally studying nursing. During my time in college, I was always super passionate about entrepreneurship and just technology as a platform to kind of affect change. So I built a web application called Plucked. It was designed to help colleges meet their enrollment goals as students applied for free. We later pivoted and built this thing called Almafine, which came out of a result from doing a national college fair on Snapchat. So through our learnings from that, we were able to kind of evolve to a platform that I think made a lot more sense for what students were going through at the time. Through my, work with Plucked and Almafine, I discovered Silicon Valley Bank. Originally started off interning on their venture capital relationship management team, and then joined the early stage practice full time after I graduated college. And recently joined Grasshopper in November, which is a digital first venture bank. So we're setting out to bank companies in the innovation economy, as well as the funds and firms that invest in them. So
nice. Wow. So tell me more. Can you explain a bit more about just what Silicon Valley Bank actually is? Because a lot of, you know, when we think about banking, we know, you know, or sorry, not what Silicon Valley Bank is, but what Grasshopper Bank is. Yeah. You worked at both banks.
Yeah.
You know, because we hear about Bank of America and TD Ameritrade Bank, but explain the difference.
Yeah, so, and I'd say it's something to think about in all aspects of life, I guess, as you set up who you're going to partner with.
Yes.
And so we think of ourselves as a banking partner specifically focused for the space that a founder and their company is in. So we work with companies all the way from inception to even supporting them at corporate finance, or if they have a meaningful acquisition or exit. And the goal really is to be able to grow with you and give you the resources to help your business get to the next inflection point. And I think that in light of recent events where that conversation becomes a lot more timely is when things are good, most times they're great, right? But there are times when I think building a relationship with a bank or a banker allows you to navigate and make decisions for your company with more flexibility and more leverage. And, you know, as sad as it is, I think the PPP program was a great example of that. Many folks that did not have relationships with their bank. And so even as they had questions or as PPP was happening, there was no one to contact, or, you know, they're kind of beholden to these processes that were put in place.
So one wouldn't get that same level of service at one of the mainline banks that we're familiar with?
You know, most times not, at least in the beginning. And I will say that when the company does mature and it's a bit bigger and maybe they have a more dedicated team focus on you, a lot of times still though, these folks aren't familiar, or they don't necessarily know what to expect as it relates to how a startup or how a technology company burns cash. So we're used to seeing, you know, a really high monthly burn.
I see.
Is how we can kind of work with you based on
Tailored.
what we're seeing, and then we can use the aggregate of what we're seeing to help you inform your decisions in terms of how we're seeing other consumer companies leverage finance, what the markets are looking like, and how you can,
Yeah.
and we've created products around that. So a popular one most people know is venture debt, but it allows you to add more money to your raise when you raise institutional capital. And so it's meant to be non-dilutive and extend your runway. And so we really look at banking as being a partner to you in all aspects of your growth, but helping you get the most effective form of capital so you can own more of your company.
Okay, that's good. That's good. I appreciate that background. And
Yeah.
so, Denisha, one of the things that you mentioned, and you've been in the innovation economy for so long, but one
Yeah.
of the things you mentioned was that you all really focus on companies working in the innovation economy.
Yeah.
Talk to me about what the innovation economy is,
Yeah.
because that is where we need to see more young, Black, brilliant, and gifted people
Totally.
walking into.
Yeah, so I'd say a few things, because I talk to a lot of folks. I always have like the annoying friend that's like, "Oh, you're interested in like medicine? There's a startup. Like, why don't you go? Why don't you go join that?" And so the way I kind of think about the innovation economy really starts with a mindset, and what is
Mm,
the mindset that not only you're bringing to the company, but overall the company has about how they make decisions and where the world is going.
yeah.
Because if you join a company that is not in the same line in terms of where the world is going or the potential for where the world can go, then I think that you get tied into a lot of antiquated practices and antiquated products being developed. So with
Wow.
that being said, even when I think of, I mean, restaurants have gotten venture money, right? And why is that? You look at what Travis Kalanick's done with cloud kitchens, and that's like a whole new take at a restaurant, like
Mm.
it not existing. You being able to use Grubhub, Seamless, Uber, all in one. So I really think it's about any industry very much serves the innovation economy, but more so, what are the thoughts and practices and the long term view of the company, and how are they using that very specific view to have an informed product or business strategy that aligns itself with that view.
Mm, okay. And so can you kind of go a little bit more deeper, right? So what does innovation look like? Like, can you give me some
Yeah,
just very specific examples of just
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
for sure.
products and services in the innovation economy?
For sure. So, I mean, just we can start with banking because that's an easy one. But
Yeah.
I mean, you think about consumer banking or commercial banking. So we all have gotten so used to branches, right? And
Right.
the security, I guess, or the flexibility to some extent of a branch. But it wasn't until very recently that we now realize you don't need to go to a bank to deposit a check. You can do mobile deposit capture. What is the need for branches to even exist truly, or how can you scale down the amount that exists, and so
Mhm.
what does that look like? So you see the rises of companies like Chime or N26 that are able to kind of leverage this new way of thinking about banking to do
Yeah.
from the TD Banks of the world. So I think that's super interesting. I think Rent the Runway in a lot of ways is still forever a really great one. Just the way they thought about accessibility versus ownership,
Yes.
and making clothes accessible versus our need to own them is huge. When I think about even furniture, I just recently moved, and my furniture comes from a company called Feather, which is a rental company, and kind of rethinking like they could have set out to build the next Bob's Furniture or Warren Flanagan, but instead they adopted a whole new business model and a whole new way of thinking about their inventory and the
That's good.
inventory.
So it's really about the mindset. I get it. I get it. It clicks now. So because innovation, it's all about the mindset. When you think about innovation economy, it's literally a new way of thinking, a new way of thoughts, of practices when
Yeah,
it comes to thinking about the way goods and services can be delivered.
exactly.
That's the
Yeah.
teacher in me, man. I got to break it down for the
I
audience.
love it. Exactly.
Dope, right? So it's like, man, what do you think are some of the inputs that help to foster that change in mindset?
Yeah.
Because you know,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
So
important.
that's a really great one. And I think it's being very conscientious about what major shifts have occurred in the last few years or the last decade, as well as having an informed thesis about what that is going to lend itself to.
Okay.
The example that I like to use the most is John Foley of Peloton. So he did this really, really well, but I got the opportunity to watch him pitch Peloton about
Wow.
3 years ago.
When you were at SVB?
Yeah, when Peloton was relatively earlier. And before he even told us what Peloton was, he talked about the decline of religion in America. And so that there was a need for people to still want a sense of community.
Wow.
The concept of health being the new wealth, and that people with increasing incomes show off their wealth through how healthy they are, and the more money
Interesting.
on health, and then kind of the fatigue around sometimes third spaces and the problems that can occur with gyms. And so he took a really risky bet, right, with a hardware product at that and a subscription. But because he had a really informed thesis, I think he was able to put some of those shifts into the product. So his decline of religion, like, that's super poignant, but you can totally see the community element in Peloton. And so I think there were like little things that informed it in a way that was really, really interesting. And so sometimes when I talk to founders, or even when my friends are considering joining a company, it's what are the parts, or what are the shifts that are making this the company that makes sense in 5 or 10 years?
Come on.
You see it with Zoom.
Investors, that's how investors think.
Yeah, and you're investing your time.
Yes.
Like, I look at me joining a company and the company that I join as my personal investment portfolio.
Come on.
So I think you should put the same type, to the extent that you can, the same type of due diligence, especially when you're joining an earlier company.
Wow. So let's riff off of this, right? So, we have this crisis going on presently. Many people are affected, but I'm sure you have seen businesses that aren't that are affected for the positive.
Yeah.
Right. Can you talk to me about what you've seen on that side?
Yeah. So it's been really interesting in the sense that I don't think anybody was doing the, like, is this COVID proof analysis before, but you're seeing a ton of that now. So the first one, of course, just because we are one, for the most part, banks are still relatively busy because people are always going to need to move money, or there's more appetite to take on potential debt in a time like this. So that's been huge. To some extent, it's interesting. Things or companies that have a product that already adapted really well online. So you have tech products in general. You have your Slack, your Zoom, your kind of workplace productivity tools. But then you also have, and Feather's a great example. People now during this time are like, oh my gosh, I need a desk. I never had a work from home setup, and they can go on and easily rent furniture or rent a desk. So I think that's been really interesting. And then I also think food delivery. I mean, we've seen a ton of food delivery for obvious reasons.
Right.
And education as well. Now that there's more appetite and kind of more of an attention span for people to try out these educational products in a way that they weren't going to before, there's been a ton more adoption in that side.
Wow. So what do you see? This is a very deep question. What do you see, like, how do you view just the state of Black America, Hispanic America, when it comes to participation in the innovation economy?
Yeah. So
how would you grade it from 8
I would say it's rather low.
Yeah.
It'd be a failing grade.
Oh, wow.
for sure. But I think
wow. And why? Why do you say that?
So it's a few reasons, and
failing
that because of a whole host of things. But I think that there's a few ways to participate in the innovation economy, but largely I feel like, at least to the extent I think about it now, when it comes to underrepresented minorities in the innovation economy,
Yeah.
like it becomes represented through the cost of goods. Like when you think about the Uber Eats and the Grubhub, you have people, but most of the time that looks like folks like us.
Yeah.
And not to say that there's something wrong with that, but I would just, I think there's an opportunity to learn how the tech behind Grubhub works, right? Or
Right.
the power of the network effect of the marketplace. And I also say that too because a lot of these small businesses, I mean, I spend a ton of time at my godfather's restaurant, and a lot of these small businesses and small restaurants have almost become beholden to these platforms while
Mm.
not being in the forefront of their creation. And so, in kind of all aspects, I think that we really see it, and it's because not only are we not creating it, but when it comes time to distribution, we don't play a meaningful role there, and almost end up becoming the implementers in order to keep the cost of goods or to actually bring the effects of the marketplace to light.
Man. And so what would you say is like things that steps we can take now, particularly, right, for, the class of 2020 who has so much time on their hands?
Yeah.
What would you what would be some of your career advice to them?
Yeah. So the biggest
Given
thing
all
I
that we just
would
talked
say
about.
is truly like looking at yourself as like the company of you, and
Ooh,
any job that you're doing, any role you're doing, you're aligning your company with that one when you think about the company.
wow.
And I say that for a few reasons because I think that uh, companies are great. You will learn a ton. There's a lot of learning and growing to do, especially in the beginning. But you want to
Yeah.
be very thoughtful around what your personal brand is going to be, how you want to show up in the market and with other people, and ultimately what you want to do. What does success look like for the company for you? Because I think it will guide a lot of the
Mm.
decisions that you make and help influence you as you take risks. And it'll better inform your thinking in terms of what you need to be learning. So, as someone who loves startups and has a dream of starting one again,
Yes.
I knew that I wanted to really understand what it was like to work in a startup that was functioning, that was doing well, that had raised capital, and what that experience was. Which is a very different experience from working at a publicly traded company.
Right.
And so I was able to better inform my decision, not just making my decision over like this company's more known versus this one, but more so this is what I want to learn out of it,
Mhm.
and this is what I can get from that experience. And I think it'll allow people to have better processes in how they make the decision, because it can be so easy, and there's a ton to learn too. But for so long, the Goldmans and the McKinseys, and even now with the Big Four getting the Google and Facebook offer, that's great.
Yeah.
But how's that going to directly affect the next thing you want to do? And I think as a result, too, another big thing that I'll say is learn out loud. I've
Right.
gotten a lot more thoughtful around sharing the things I'm interested in, the spaces I'm interested in, and writing my thoughts and my learnings as I go through. And I've been able to connect with so many amazing folks just by saying, like, I really want to learn about the African tech ecosystem. And I really like music tech, and I really like these things. And even though it can feel really nascent in the beginning, and
Yeah.
like I don't almost like I don't feel qualified to talk about this or to truly have a conversation, you start to get better, and you start to
Right.
and you start to immerse yourself in this space, even if it's only something you then want to do 10 years down the line or 15 years down the line. You've already planted
Right.
those seeds.
So you've been exposed to just the tech opportunities on the continent?
Yeah.
That's
So
I'm super interested in that. We just had a talk. I just interviewed one of the founders of Jobberman, which was a
okay.
like the LinkedIn of Nigeria, of
Yeah.
Africa. So
Yeah.
he's a founding team member. Now he's working on some really cool stuff in the fintech space. But
Oh,
when I think of my investment thesis is Africa for a
yeah.
number of reasons.
Yeah.
From the youth perspective, from natural resources,
Yeah.
the low cost,
Yeah.
English speaking. I mean, Yo.
So many opportunities, and so it felt a little intimidating at first.
Yeah.
The more time I spend and the more intentional I am about learning, I only get more and more excited.
Yeah. Have you written anything on it? I'd love to like, I mean, this
So
is me.
I did. I'll send it to you. But I
Yeah.
did. I talked a lot about the overlooked fan frontier in
The
Ghana.
what?
The overlooked fan frontier. So I studied
Brand frontier. What's that?
how they build their audiences, and I think a lot of artists discount audiences, and it focused specifically on Ghana and Nigeria, but it's really
Yes.
overall.
Yeah.
And so it's just a missed opportunity to me. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't until like 2 weeks ago that Apple Music just added like 40 African countries. And so you have, and like you said, with more startups, with more companies, Netflix just opened an office in Nigeria.
Hey,
You have
they're
more.
getting it.
Yeah, you're
I
gonna
love
have.
it's like if you look at what companies are doing, like that's free market research. Right?
Exactly.
If they're investing, if you see Netflix, I mean, I think, I mean, it's funny, right? Because already, like the major consulting firms, they've been had
Yeah.
offices down there. Now Microsoft has an office. I think
Yeah.
Facebook may have an office.
Google has one.
Google has one. You know, so catch up, guys. We are already behind. Yeah.
Exactly.
And anybody, if you're listening to this and if you have found any of this content valuable so far, just take a moment to smash that like button. My goal for this video is for us to get to, let's say 10,000 views. All right. 10,000 likes as well. So just smash that like button and as a way of saying thank you. But that's dope. Like, so what publications are you reading to just stay abreast on what's going
Yeah,
on?
so Twitter has actually been great in the sense that I
Yeah.
follow a ton of people on Twitter.
Okay.
On the continent, I do read a good amount of Quartz Africa. Um,
Yes. Every Sunday, every weekend. I get it.
really like it.
Yeah, we got to connect.
We have a whole like
Yeah, it's a whole session.
like tech ecosystem chat. And I mean, I went to Ghana in December. Partly
Nice.
year return, partly because
Uh-oh. Sorry about that.
good. Partly for your return, partly because it's been too long since I'd seen my family.
Yeah.
But in a lot of ways too, it was really to like evaluate like what quality of life would be there, what it
Yeah.
living there, spending time there. And when I think about, especially, I think about this a lot for Black founders. Like for me, if I was to build a startup right now, I feel like I would have more of the affordances or some of the same affordances that a white man, for example, has here. Like I have family there. I know I have a place to live. I don't have to worry about rent. Like some of those, like just really like
That's a word. That's a whole word, right?
yeah.
Man.
So I'd like to see, and like you said, thanks to cost of living, um, great employee resources to tap into. I really would like to see that like positioning as that hub, and hopefully more accelerators and things pop up, and also to encourage folks from here to consider building at least the beginning or that pre-seed seed stage,
Yeah.
putting in that infrastructure.
I love it. I love it. And I guess like my last question is, you know, when you think about investing in the next 5 to 10 years, right? Investing the company of you, right? If you were going to be, you know, just a pretend, you know, investment advisor for all of the companies of yous who are watching this,
Yeah,
you know, what would you tell them to at least pay attention to
yeah.
for the time horizon of 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, so my financial planner somewhere like, oh Lord, what's she gonna say? But I'd say this is something I'm really big on, especially for like the company view, is to in the beginning, your appetite for risk will most likely be the highest. In these next 10 to 15 years, I feel like I have the biggest appetite for risk. So as a result, I'm going to spend the most time investing in myself and things that I feel like will lead to some type of ROI, even though it can't be calculated right now. And I say that to say, I think sometimes in the short term, we optimize. And that's great. And it really more so should be a balance. I probably just lean extreme on one. But
Yeah.
I think a lot about that in terms of like, I try to adopt this rule for the most part that like if there's a book I want, like I'm gonna buy it. So like now do I need to read it? Yes, but it won't be because that book isn't here for me to read, or if there's a course I want to take, getting better about how I'm spending money or what that money looks like, because that $15 book is the price of a drink at a New York City.
Yeah.
And getting better about that and thinking about how I'm spending my money and how that serves me. So that's big. I'd also say too, sometimes we can not optimize for experiences, but I don't think we realize how big a role experiences affect our mindset and what we ultimately want to do or where we want to go. So I'd say that's another one. And then another thing I kind of think about is just like the time opportunity cost. So I've gotten to realize like while there's a lot of things that I want to do or that I'm interested in, it might not necessarily be right now, and that there's going to be phases of my life. There will be definitely like a phase where I'm like really supporting the Ghanaian tech ecosystem. There will be a phase where I build a startup again. There will be these phases, but they might not all happen at once. So how do I start to think about what those next 1 to 2 phases look like and optimize for that and spending my money and my resources to being the best for that?
Thank you, Denisha. That's so good, man. Any last words for
Yeah,
listening?
I was just gonna say, like, I know it's tough, and I know it's very much uncharted territory. I mean, there's been a ton of documents and things going around showing that, like, a lot of great companies were built during a recession, and I think that's the same could be true for like people. The
Yes.
resilience right now that people are going to come out of this with is just going to be phenomenal. And while staying at home isn't fun, it really does give time to be intentional and thoughtful and to kind of quiet your mind. And to the extent you can be productive or think about other things, like it's a great time for that too. So
Come on. Thank you, Denisha. I really appreciate it. Thank
yeah.
you for sharing the nuggets. And again, everybody who's listening, as always, what actions are you going to take?
Yeah.
Because talk is cheap, talk is broke, and time is money. So get started right now. And you can do so by becoming a member of the Student Dream community, get more access to people like Denisha, right, who are looking at the future and who can save you so much time and energy because they're able to share 10 years worth of experience with you in 30 minutes. So consider joining the Student Dream community. All that information is below. But thank you guys. Again, smash that like button. If you found this valuable at all, let us know what actions you're going to be taking in the comment section below. And Denisha, thank you so much.
Thank you so
I
much.
cannot wait to conquer Africa with you,
Yes.
Queen.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right. See you later.
Bye.